So, Jax, what did you think of Marriage Story?
What did I love about Marriage Story? So before it started, I knew Kylo Ren, Black Widow, in a divorce movie. That's essentially it. Didn't see a trailer. Was really, really nervous to watch it. Was like really nervous to watch it because I was like tiny clips came up on Netflix and like, you know, you could see Adam Driver and she was like, I need to talk. And he was like, I don't know where to start. And I was like, oh, I can just tell it's gonna be good. I can just tell. So I've really got to, and I knew I'd be emotionally drained. So I was like, I need to find time for that. Found time as soon as it started where they're all like, this is what I love. And they're doing the notes. Immediately I was like, oh my God, this is the best movie I've ever seen. Like I was truly blown away from the start, from the way it followed the characters, the way it was like, just the intimate, like documentary feel without being documentary. Like it didn't feel like we're just kind of holding the camera. It wasn't a bit too shaky or anything. From the get-go when they're talking about each other, he's unwrapping the trumpet and just the way it was all feeling. So I was immediately blown away by like the filming styles and that stuff. The acting, just, oh my God, it was heartbreaking and really sad, and overall first impressions, fucking crave, like absolutely crave. First thoughts?
Yeah, I think very much along the same line. It's probably one of my favorite movies of last year.
Easy.
If not my favorite movie of last year.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched it twice now. And everything that worked for me the first time worked again the second, and it has that replay value. I think touching on the start, probably the closest thing I can compare the beginning to is something like Up. That just kind of sets up all the pins for them to be bowled over 10 minutes in.
Yes.
And then you're left with like devastation, and you've like grown to love just the simplest things about these characters and their little intricacies of their relationship, and like just so many little relatable pieces that are delivered like through just immaculate production design and the way it's shot. It's beautiful and it's true. I think it's true in a way that's pretty universal. I've not been married, I've not gone through a divorce.
Nope, neither.
But I've seen so much of this both in my own relationships and through other people's relationships that I've watched. And I mean, it's applicable as much to a breakup as it is to a divorce, even though it's a smaller scale thing. But it really floored me, and it really kind of made me, I think it did what really great films do best. It made me reflect on my own relationships. It made me reflect on my past and how I've treated other people and what I've taken for granted. And it just made me think about a lot of that stuff a lot more than any other movie has in a while. And I think that's probably the thing I keep coming back to. Everything in the movie just felt really true and genuine, and like it had been thought through by someone who had gone through all of this maybe a couple of times to kind of encapsulate it so well.
Oh yeah, it felt very he's gone through some rough breakups for sure. Otherwise, you'd be almost confused how he made this. It was just like from the start where you emotionally are just in with them, just the little intricacies. I just love how it's like it starts with like, this is what I love, and you're like, oh, they're both so good, and it just makes you realize it's like when you find that thing where someone like has that little trait which you find annoying in everyone else but you love in them, and just sprinkle all of them in with all the little things they love, and then to be like, boom, smash cut, read out your fucking divorce letters to remind each other why you used to love each other, and immediately you're just like, oh no, this isn't going to be fun. Yeah, actually the whole time I was watching it, I felt like a sense of like, I wanted it to stop, but I also never wanted it to stop. Like, moments would be so painful and real, but I was just like, I just want more. I just want more and more and more of this like painful, real, like just little, I felt so like real emotions, like not like just kind of like, wow, this is good. I was just like so angry at little bits, so frustrated, and like,
I think that the little things that are devastating are kind of really relatable. Thinking about Halloween specifically and that whole sequence, it's like I feel like everyone has tried to have the best night they could and probably force it. And whether it's going out for a party with friends or catching up with
the New Year's effect.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And you can just see him trying so hard. And then at the end, what does he end up with? A lighter? Who gave you a lighter? Who gave you a lighter? And then he uses it to open a bottle, and it's just, yeah.
In terms of the Halloween thing, there's so much to talk about, but that reminded me of like the little things I feel like it reincorporates perfectly. When the kid comes back from the mom, it's like candy overflowing, and just the little things. When he comes back from the dad, he pours the candy out, and it's just little sprinklings. And it's those little visual cues and the way that they like incorporate the hair cutting at the start and then towards the end, just those little things to kind of remind you of where they're all at. I thought was like just reincorporation of those little elements, visuals to like represent where the characters were kind of at was just devastating. But that Halloween's thing, when he like shows his whole like troupe or whatever you call them, like the theater guys, he's like, and they're like, who's the little Halloween thing? He's like, it's for my son. And I was like, oh no. I could already see, and not in like a bad way, I'm like, I know what's there. I was just like, oh no. And then you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then when she gets there, she's like almost, yeah.
You can see him fight it in an earlier scene too. I think they have a conversation before Halloween about doing it, and she is just saying, we're doing it in this neighborhood with this group of people. I can't remember the details of it.
It's when he's come to the door and he's let them know, and he's just found out that they're doing the Power Rangers. So the kid runs off. He's like, and the kid doesn't give a shit. And there's blah, blah, blah. He's just doing the kid stuff. And then he's like, come on, like, help us out. She's like, I'm not going to force him. He's like, just leave it here. And she's like, no. You can do it later. Oh, we're doing this. And that scene feels very much like where she's like, she's not being evil, but because like I'm kind of on Adam Driver's side for a lot of it, for whatever reason that is, I feel like that moment, it's the same as when he arrives to take the kid for the day, and he sits there, and the kid runs over to the side and ignores him because he's doing a treasure hunt. And it's like, hey, yeah, it doesn't matter how late I am. You know that when I arrive, if you're doing this, so it's so real, it's so manipulative, but not in like. Yeah, just
a Hollywood way. It's manipulative in like
it's so real. It's such a thing you would actually do, and you'd actually be like, oh, come on, like, why? And then
the counter to that, though, I would say is that if you actually track the decision making that's going on with him, it's this idealized version of he's a romantic, he's creative, it's kind of the character type, and he's constantly making the wrong decisions for his son and family to try and do the kind of right thing. And you can see it's why it's so powerful at the end when you see him come through it all. And it's really like bookended with, so the letter that gets read at the opening is what they were gonna read in the marriage counseling session. Yeah. And it's like the first time you watch her read her letter about him, it like makes you laugh and it makes you fall in love with them.
It's romantic, it's beautiful, it's fun.
And then at the end when he reads it,
oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't think it would get me the second time, because the first time it just kind of sneaks in. It's not until he's like halfway through the letter and then he starts kind of cracking a bit and then he skims over the alcohol part. Yeah, so there's a little, but then by the end of it I'm just like, fuck, I don't know. I didn't think it would be as powerful rewatching as it was. It's
simple. It just does the simple basic film things of reincorporation. But it just does it in such beautiful ways where it's like, we see at the start, there's lovely, beautiful, romantic, all these things. Switch, oh no, it's about this. But then at the end, when they've kind of gone through the hardest things, and we don't know, it could get way, way worse in the end. But where it ends, they've kind of accepted that this is going to be it, and that
they have an equilibrium.
And that they did love each other. There's a few moments in the film, like one of the bits is where he's at the end of the fight, which we'll have to discuss.
The best scene in the movie.
Yeah, we'll have to save that for a second. But when he ends that bit by like screaming at her, being like, if I could promise you that our son would be alive, I wish you get a disease and get hit by a car. He like means that at that moment. But a couple of weeks later, a year later, they've dealt with the fact that this is going to be the thing. And yeah, this small incorporation, I just love that like in the middle of the film, the kid is asleep, they've come over to fix the gate. the symbolism, like putting it across, being like, we are slowly separating.
And that great back and forth, the way
And
they
it
cut.
quickly cuts. I remember watching them. The first time that happens, as it slides, I remember being like, if this movie sucked, I'd probably turn it off now. Because I'd be like, no, that is, I get it. They're separated by a door.
Yeah.
But it was just so heartbreaking, beautiful, and simple. And I think that's, I don't know what it is. And it just must be the director, the actors just, but the things that could just not work in a movie, I think they just work so well. Like a big over-the-top fight that ends with a punch and a cry, it could be over the top. The most emotional, like, that fight is just such a beautiful, intense, amazing...
Everything, I think even like, one thing I haven't seen discussed as much is the production design. The whole way through the film is just constantly... Every character is surrounded by themselves through the production design, through the color palette, through the... I mean, I'm even thinking of like Laura Dern's lawyer character, who I think is called Laura in the movie. But if you look at her office, she's got like pink fluffy pillows. And Nora, it's Nora, not Laura. Yeah. It's close enough.
Close enough, yeah.
But she's got, very sharp-edged furniture. She has these... Everything is pink and fluffy and nice, but then she has this spiky plant right in the center of the room.
Awesome, I didn't notice that
There's
at all.
I think I even drew it in my notes. Like, I think I even, I did. I had like the plant, the pillow, the heels.
I know the plant you're talking about now.
And like the red heels which she takes off and she's getting comfortable with her. And there's just every detail in the production design through every character. Even when ScarJo moves back in with her mum. And we cut into the room and her mum's following around and being really grating. Look at the room. It's messy. She's not being cleaned up anymore by Adam Driver's character, Charlie.
He's always... Yeah.
And there's just so much of those little things that kind of play out. And the mum's kind of... The way she glorifies the partners of her children. And she's got these little shrines set up. And then later in the movie, he's reflecting at just this wall of everything he's lost. And his ex is in the room next. And it's just every single thing, all the way up to the big fight scene in that amazing apartment, in that like perfect little space, which is just so simple. And you can tell everything there is meant to be there. And everything is a representation of the character trying to fill this void that he's created for himself, and he can't find the cups, and he can't, everything is kind of disconnected and discombobulated, and all of it is just showing through to this person who's come to watch him. I mean, there's no point in the film where any of it isn't really, really being thought through and scrutinized, and
And I think... When you're saying about production design not being discussed, all these kind of things, I think, for instance, I've watched the movie twice. Those things don't really occur to me. And as you're saying, I'm like, yes, it feels that. But because it just starts, like, I don't go, oh, he's done this and this and this. Because you're just in, and the world...
It's so real. I think I noticed a lot more of it the second time, too. So I do have the benefit of that, where I was looking for details. I was looking... a little bit more for things to discuss. The first time, I just kind of let it wash over me. And I was just like, fuck. Just felt like devastated and drained afterwards. And then the second time I watched it, I kind of felt that, but I felt like, I want to make a movie like this. Like, it's just he captured something. He captured this really unfair, unbalanced in the legal system and in personal relationships, and even the way the lawyers reflect over how everything is going. You've got Ray Liotta and...
he was so fucking good.
Yeah.
He's also really old now.
He's just cutthroat and to the point, and you're going to get fucked over here, man. And then he goes that soft, if I were representing you, lawyer, which I think is the best line that character delivers when after Laura Dern has come down on him and he's sitting in a room and he's just sitting at this table and there's a plate in front of him and a cup and like crumbs on the table, and it's just bare and barren and the complete opposite of the other lawyer.
Yeah, this is the old guy, not the
after they've had a proceeding, and the good lawyer basically just tells him you're fucked.
And that's the bit where he's like, court or no court, you're being frustrating. He's like, I know, and he's like pouring the cup, and he's just doing the mundane things. It's just a day in the office for him. Even though he's ruining, like, it's this guy's end of world.
And he says, if I were representing to you, he's like, you are representing me.
It's all that lawyer stuff. I feel like is a whole different aspect to the movie that kind of like is this kind of separate beast almost. Because like
all three of the lawyers agree on, and they all have moments where they articulate that the legal system is completely unbalanced in these situations against men. And it's, you can say it's against men, or you can say it's for children. You know, there's two ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. It's not a political matter for me. It's just what the movie's exploring, and every one of the lawyers admits. I think Laura Dern says something like, you know, these situations reward bad behavior.
Yes, that's as soon as Ray Liotta appears, she's like, "We're gonna change things. You thought I was a bitch. Now let's see how I go."
Yeah. I'm gonna show you that spiky plant. Yeah, not the soft, fluffy, nice lady.
There is actually a moment at the start of the film, probably like half in, when we first introduced to Laura Dern. Something like she says something like, "Oh, I'm so sorry how I'm dressed, so casual and she's whatever." She's perfectly things. She's pressed, suited like a $10,000 suit. Her office is like $1 million. It's so, and then you see Scarlett Johansson kind of look down at her own clothes and kind of just that shabby, like just kind of defeated mum kind of like clothing, which she's just put on clothes because you need clothes. And the way she treats that and the way she sits there and listens, and she's just like, yeah, just talk about your husband for a bit, and has that thing. And then there's just one moment where Scarlett Johansson's like, she starts like crying or she's sniffling and she's doing a thing, and she starts being a bit like, she gets a cookie and she's like, "Oh, the cookie's good." She's like, "Oh, I'll give you some cookies at the end." And she just does this thing, and then something about that Laura Dern thing was such a fantastic performance. Because something about it, I was like,
is it almost manipulative?
It's
in a really
100%
nice...
manipulative, but guised under this thing. But part of me is like, well, I can't be angry at Laura Dern. This is her job.
Yeah.
Her job is to make this person feel comfortable, and she knows how to do it. She knows how to tweak. Like, she says at the start, she's like, "I've been through this. I have a husband in Malibu now." Oh no, an ex. He's a narcissist. He was verbally mean. All these things. I'm like, we never see her outside the office. We don't know if any of this is true. It's not true. Why would it be true? It wouldn't be true. Because, I mean, it could totally be true. But it's better to leave it ambiguous, to not show her life. Because I think for me, one of my favorite scenes is when her and the old man, I don't know what the actor's name is, but does the other, not Ray Liotta.
The other lawyer.
But when they're having the thing and she's brutal.
She's Alan Alda or something? No, it's not.
I have no idea. But she's so brutal, and he's, they're all doing their thing, and it's quite cutthroat. The couple, Scarlett Johansson and Kylo, they can't even, Adam Driver, they can't
Everyone knows what.
They can't even look at each other, when they're having conversations. They're like, he's like, "Well, we had that discussion." He's not even looking. It's not like, "Hey, we had that discussion." It's like, he's almost responding to Laura. They're all kind of talking
around
high school, around each other. And then the guy's like, sorry to interrupt, but the guy's just like, "Oh, hey, everyone will be hungry in like half an hour, right? We'll get food." And everyone's like, "Oh, food." And then they're asking about their jobs. It's like, "Oh, it must be so competitive." And she's like, "You're a fucking great actor, Adam Driver. I fucking love you." And then, the play's the best thing I've ever seen about the smell. All of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? And then
there's the legal world and the real world, and they're not the same.
And I feel like without those characters in it, the divorce is everything. And then I don't know, it was an aspect of the film I never expected, because I knew divorce movie, they're gonna be all sad all the time.
Yeah.
Just arguing and being sad, which it pretty much is. It's horrifically brutal. But then you have these just insane moments of just like, oh my god, that's right. Like, after this day or month or week, I kind of like, you don't really know how long the movie's gone for either, but however long. Every time we don't see Laura Dern, she's off like doing another case with some other person whose entire life is ruining. And all these people's lives that are being ruining. Like, there's a scene where he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that with the money." And Adam Driver's like, "What does it matter? I'm paying you all the money." It doesn't. And you can just see he just says it. He's just like, "Oh, we're going to lawyers." He's not even like, he's not passionate. He's
come to terms with it. It's like the defeat's already there. I think even the introduction of Laura Dern's character is kind of delivered through this sycophantic Hollywood, I don't know if it's a producer or stage person, on the, when she's got the CGI baby and she's doing the...
Oh my god!
And the woman who introduces her to the lawyer talks about her husband in the most... She's like...
"Oh, he's a cocksucker!"
Yeah, and it's a perfect lead-in. And then you've got this beautiful shot of Laura Dern, just like you said before. She's like prim and proper and just long legs and takes up the whole frame.
Looks expensive, beautiful, so elegant, and she's like... Yeah, and the worst thing, to think you're shabby and... But it's so clever, because it's like... she's done this job enough that you know she's playing into what she sees from Scarlett Johansson, who at that moment seems very broken and defeated, and she plays into a bit. She's like, let's just get this out of the way. You're fantastic as an actress. The husband's fantastic. This and that. But then she immediately starts feeding into the things, which then leads to the character being like, oh, do you want to come into the writer's room? And she's like, direct. And that directing thing, there's little things that like...
I've never done it before, but...
Yeah, because every time he said the thing, and one of the lines that I thought was so painfully true that made me like immediately reflect on my entire life was like, which I think is just, it's a really dangerous thing to happen and to not be aware of, is that like, she's like, when it's something you want, it's a decision, and when it's something you don't want, it's just a discussion.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I remember being like, oh my God, is Adam Driver the bad guy in this movie? I mean, there's no bad guys, good guys. That's why he's so beautiful and fucked up. But I don't know, just because I'm a man, just maybe because I think Adam Driver is the most amazing actor in the whole world, but I love him so much. And I feel like we follow him a bit more.
Yep.
There are moments like, where she's doing where she's kind of being a bit manipulative and stuff, but like, I'm kind of like, oh, like you feel his pain, even though like there are moments where it's like, he's cheated on her. And I think that if we had seen them together as a loving couple and then he cheated, it's really interesting because we never actually see him cheating. That doesn't like push down.
It doesn't register it as
as much, which I don't thought it's not this or that, but like,
which is kind of represented in the film. Like he does not even. He has actually argued to himself and convinced himself that what he did wasn't bad because he spent his 20s, the prime of his years,
that's a bit
not sleeping with everyone. That he's able to. It's cognitive dissonance, I guess. Is you can create whatever argument, you can follow whatever train of thought you want to its end, and he's done that, and you can tell he's thought all the way through it. He's a smart guy, and he's gone, I sacrificed all my 20s, and now there's this person who's paying me attention and thinks I'm, all of this.
And you haven't slept with me for a year. You'd already stopped, and it was like this, which is very dangerous as well, and that is an awful thing. But I think because, I don't know, it's.
Because I've had thoughts like that before. I've had thoughts like that where I've tried to justify horrible things that I've done in relationships with people in the past that I can now look back on and go, the person I was there is not who I am now. And I think he comes to that same conclusion at the end of it all. But I did have an interesting thought about Adam Driver in that he kind of embodies this strange baby-faced masculinity, which I guess is the best way to describe it, in that he has this kind of kind, young, unassuming...
He's so young and baby-faced.
But his shoulders are as broad as any man.
He's a big man.
He's huge and he towers over everyone and has these moments of just like pure, unbridled rage. Like...
Does that mean I'm done? Does that mean I'm done when they're playing Monopoly? It's like, this is bullshit. I'm like, bro, Monopoly, fucking calm down. It's just a game.
I don't mean to take anything away from him, and I hope it doesn't sound like a criticism because he does it so well, but I feel like almost...
Hit him with the criticism.
Yeah. Now that I've set up my huge criticism, there's an intense... I mean, is it intensity over... And this was a conversation I was having with someone else about the movie, where we couldn't really come to an agreement on who the better actor was. Is Scarlett Johansson or Adam Driver? Now Adam Driver gets the moments, and he gets the punch, and he gets like the real visceral, because he can turn the intensity up and make it feel so natural and real. And it's one of the things that made him that made us believe in him in Star Wars.
Yeah,
I think that's. Like he's the king. He's the king of the tantrum, like the adult tantrum. He just inhibits it. He's probably just got so much of that buried in him that he lets it out a little bit. And this man has. I mean, he could knock out probably 9/10 of people on the planet if it's just a one-on-one. He's huge and unassuming and baby-faced, and I think it's. They use his look and his demeanor and all of it to add so much, even what he did in Girls, what he's done in Star Wars, what he's done here. I've only seen bits of it, but it's all kind of that same thing. He's this big, huge character with this like baby face, and there's this darkness kind of seething underneath.
When it cracks through the surface every now and then.
It's like confronting.
And you're kind of like, yeah, whoa.
Yeah. But at the same time, Scarlett Johansson,
she's just as good.
Never has an explosion, but sells it in just such a different way, I think.
Does she not though? Because I feel like the bit where she has the scene with Laura Dern where she first meets her, and she slowly cracks, and then she slowly realizes, hey, like, he's been, I don't feel fulfilled. And she's realizing those things, and she's kind of admitting it to herself. And Laura Dern's feeding it to her a little bit. But I think sometimes you need someone to be like, keep saying you're okay. And like, are you? Like Laura Dern's like, yeah, he's not a dick. But he's a dick, and explain why.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you do need someone just so you can kind of and then vent. And then when you start venting, you suddenly realize, shit, I have all these things to fucking vent about.
That does remind me
I think her scene in that is, I don't know, I think she's just as good, because...
At least just as good. I can't decide who I like more. I think I edge her out just over him, because it's not that he's cheating with the intensity, but it's that and because I've seen other actors do intense like that and fall flat on their face, and he never does, Like him screaming at the end of Last Jedi, or, just like, he really, really sells it.
He really sells getting angry. He
really does. And her performance is so, I guess, the counter. It seems a little more understated. There are like imperfections in her performance that sell it even more. She goes to grab something and second guesses herself. There's like lots of little things like that. One thing I did want to mention, which I was going to mention earlier, because I said I had two more things to say about the Laura Dern lock. The last thing which I loved, I say loved, but probably a weird way to phrase it, is just the end of that scene. She details almost their entire relationship from beginning to end. And it's the adultery is an afterthought. Yeah?
Oh, and he fucking cheated on me.
Yeah, it's right at the end. It's just thrown in. It's not even... Probably if she had a list of top 10 things...
It's at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom. It's like this is everything this is my 10 reasons why I hate you. P.S. you cheated on me.
Yeah.
It's like an 11th afterthought. Yeah, no, 100%.
And it gets this reaction from her.
What a bitch. Or what a dick or whatever.
Yeah.
Or what an asshole.
Yeah.
What were you just saying just before that?
Oh
no, something. Oh, his baby face. Remember his baby face and his anger and the bigness. What I fucking loved. And it's this tiny aspect. It's barely, it's just part of the movie. And I guess I'm going to have to compare it to this other thing just in my mind. But in The Sopranos, there's a big fight in one of the episodes in one of the seasons. Don't need to say spoilers and stuff. But Tony Soprano gets really, really angry, and there's like the characters yelling at, face is there, and the wall is there, and he punches the fuck out of the wall. And he punches it good, and there's a big hole, and it's like, and it's kind of this over dramatic, big, like it's big and it's powerful, and the punch is like, in this, there is a fight, and he's a big man, and he's like, I'm so angry, and then he hits the wall, like, his whole body just kind of goes, and he just hits the wall, and there's this tiny thing. But still, then later, the woman who's like, I'm very just chill, brilliant actor, brilliant casting. Everything about her was so just, I'm just here.
Like, quietly intense.
Scary.
Kind of, yeah.
Because she has
She's almost
all
a
the
villain,
power.
but...
She is a villain. It's like having, it's the same thing as having Christopher Waltz come into the house at the start of Inglourious Basterds, where he comes in, and he's quiet, he's unassuming. But because of what he represents, of what he's there to do, he's evil.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously he's always evil. But she is evil in his mind. She's just some woman who's coming to his house and could take away his child forever. So much so that he accidentally cuts himself, which is the greatest thing in the whole world. Because like the whole knife thing I thought was just when you tell your kid, you can have a knife, but then he says, shut up kid, don't talk about the knife now. Later when he's like, did it go good, Dad? He's like, no, you talked about the knife thing. Why do I need to tell you to not talk about that? You're not two, you're fucking... I love the kid so much because he made me angry almost every single scene in the movie. And then at the end, when he's reading the thing and the dad's reading it, and the son's kind of realizing, hey, this is a letter from my mum who doesn't love my dad, but they still love... Oh my God. There was just so much. But I think his performance is good. Because part of me was like, is it horrendous? Because I'm actually getting really angry at him. But I'm getting angry because of the positions the parents are using him. And especially Adam Driver's character, I think, kind of constantly forgets the kid as a person with feelings, because he has the Frankenstein thing. He has this thing, and that's what you can do in a relationship. You kind of get locked into a thing and forget that other person's a person. And if they disagree or don't want to do that, it might not be because they love their mum and they hate me. Maybe he just likes LA more. So another thing we haven't discussed is like the East Coast, West Coast thing. And I couldn't even tell you which one's a fucking which, because I don't care. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But I know that they're really far away. I knew that before the movie, and it's the same as like here in Australia. It's Melbourne and Sydney aren't as far, but it's the same. But even just if you live on the other side of the city. And just that difference in like, just the way they use that, like the way they use the visuals, like there's a big wide at one point where Adam Driver's on the phone to Laura Dern, and she's like, you have to fucking do all this shit. And he's like, I don't want to do all this lawyer stuff. And she's like, you're going to have to do it, I'm sorry. And he's like, can I do it here? She's like, where is this? He's like, I'm in New York. And she's like, oh, is that all the honking? And like, kind of always just little jabs at everything. And then you get this big wide shot just before it cuts to him in LA of New York, and it's the New York Times Square shot. You've got all your things, but it didn't feel like New York, Times Square. Oh, I'm Captain America at the end of time. I'm in Times Square. It was like just that transition to a big car park, and then them going down a really busy highway, and it's sunny and it's just red and beating. That you could feel the heat.
Yeah.
And I just felt that transition change, and just using Times Square like that, and having big things like New York, LA, like. Everyone kind of has
familiarity.
Yes, yeah. It's like shorthand. There's a bit of cinematic shorthand there as well. But using, I just felt like, all these things, I just don't know. It all worked really, really well, really cleverly to create these differences with them. And then to have just these little reincorporations. Like, he's just like, no, fuck. He's like, you're going to have to give her LA. He's like, no, this is it. No. He has to know I fought for him. Fuck this shit. No. And then at the end, he's coming into the house. They're all running around doing their things. He's just there. The new boyfriend's like, shh, I'm playing a game with the mom, and you see, oh, she has a relationship with everyone because she just likes everyone. Yeah. Nothing against him, but obviously he's going to be like, fantastic. She loves him now too. Fantastic. And at the end, just after that scene where he's like, oh yeah, I'll send you that email about that link. And I'm like, the dad's hanging out. I don't want to read that email you send. Just don't send it. Forget. It'll be fine. When he comes for the Halloween, and he does the things, and he accepts, we're not going to dress how I want to dress, I'm just going to put on a ghost thing and be totally different. He's like, comes into the house, he's all awkward, and he's just like, I'm going to be here for a while. UFCL or whatever the hell you got. It's like, I got a job here in LA. And she's kind of like, oh, fuck, jeez. But she accepts it.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, okay. And it just does those little things where, like, in the middle of the movie, he comes over to fix the gate, but she's like, oh, he's real tired. Like, let him stay here. He's like, fuck no, my night.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he's learned to accept all these things, but it just feels natural and just beautiful the way he's like, I'm going to be here for a little bit now. And
he learned it because he held on too much earlier, and you felt him lose all these little battles.
Yeah.
And you felt him lose them because he was probably... He was holding on too tight, and had he just let things go a little bit more, and if he was able to be a little bit more objective about it all, which would be impossible in a situation like that, especially with a kid involved, he probably would have come to these conclusions a little earlier. Now, if you want some... The character names I thought were interesting. So we had Nicole and Charlie. Mm-hmm. And Nicole literally translates to victory of the people. And Charlie literally translates to free man.
Translates from what? Like in Latin or?
No. So the etymology of the names. So names kind of change and evolve, but if you trace them back to their original name, which I think is what a lot of filmmakers and writers do, is they try and find names that are applicable. I always think it's interesting searching the meanings of names, because they're either just so vague that you have to kind of throw them out. But I think these two are very intentional. And I think there's probably a lot of that all freckled throughout the film.
This director feels like every second of this movie is intentional, perfectly crafted, and I feel like if I saw any deleted scenes, I'd be like, you deleted that for a reason.
Yes.
And here's the 3 reasons. I can even tell you them. Like, it's just all...
Every shot, every close-up, every detail shot, all of it.
So I watched it twice this week, and yeah, I thought Parasite was easily my favourite film of last year. Like, it was so far beyond everything else. If you asked me last year what are all the good films you saw, I'd be like, I don't know, Parasite? And I'd be like, asking you what other films came out last year, and you'd be like, Jojo Rabbit, I didn't see it. You'd be like,
Yeah,
this one, like, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But this film floored me. Like, just the feeling of it. Also another thing, and I meant to pay more attention to it in the second watch, but then as it was ending, I was like, oh shit, no, but I feel like there's like 3 or 4 transitional moments where there's pretty much big chunks of scenes where a character will have a 10-minute scene with someone, and there's kind of chunks of that. And then transitional moments where he's like, oh, no, I've accepted this and this. And that's the only time I remember music playing. It was at the start, and then at the middle of the transition period, and then just after the fight, okay, read what's on the thing then. Because I remember being like...
That's why I wrote music, question mark. And then I wrote... This is all I wrote about the music because I did notice it at one point because it's so light.
It's beautiful music.
It's just light piano and violin, I think.
Very, very well composed. It's
I wrote
heartbreakingly simple and beautiful, and like it's got this dreamy kind of like...
Yeah.
At the start of the movie, it's like... I kind of wish I had known the only thing I knew, which was, it's a movie about divorce. Because that first start is so beautiful, you're like... But I almost would have been like, it's going to be this kind of movie. And then it cuts to that scene where it's like... We're in a counseling session about divorce. Remember how you loved each other? And I'll be like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What do you mean? Oh my god. Oh, also, totally random, but just thought of it. The best part of the movie is when they totally just got a normal looking actress to babysit them, and so that she could walk in to have 2 of those sexiest Hollywood stars ever. Holy fuck, you're hot as fuck! And they're like,
she has her pants off.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I thought you weren't coming home yet.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's like a thing where it was like you could go one step too far and she'd be like doing something weird, like wanking or something, you know? Like you could take that further.
Do a cheap comedic bit there that he never does.
Yeah, turn it into like, the whatever. Yeah, no, I don't know.
All of it. It's a movie that really is like, I mean, I think this has been said a million times and oversaid, but it's like the devil's in the details, and everything great about this movie is the details. It's all the little pieces that add up to this larger whole. There's not like, I mean, you could kind of say the fight scene is kind of the encapsulation of the movie, but that misses so much else about it. That's kind of the crescendo of the movie, not what the movie is.
It's like if you look at like a big action film and pick the best action scene, where you're like, this is my favorite bit, but it's only good because the whole movie. And I mean, fuck. That's the same with every good scene in any. But this, I think, as well, like, and I think the fight scene, I think, is a really great example because I haven't actually properly seen it because I didn't want to see the scene, but I heard online, maybe when this film first came out, it was quite a while ago. It doesn't matter. But people were like seeing the fight scene. I'm gonna have to assume it's the fight scene because it's the most over the top, and it was being criticized for overacting and just it had this. I just watched some podcast or video or something about it, and they were mentioning it. I remember being like, I'm kind of interested, but then they're like, no, I don't want to see anything about this film because if I haven't seen a trailer but I'm going to watch a film, I don't want to see anything because that's a very unusual thing for me, and it's very exciting sometimes because you just don't know what. I actually watched the trailer after this because it's just on Netflix, little trailer thing.
Yeah,
garbage.
Yeah,
garbage. This kind of movie, you can't appeal to me because you can't be like. And I'm like, oh my god, look at the shot of that iceberg. Look at the shot of that spaceship. Look at the shot of that trailer. Oh, like when Lighthouse, 30 seconds into that trailer. Boom. They're there. It's all black and white. I get it. Oh, I mean, I see the type of film you're making. I don't, it gives me enough to be like, oh yeah. You know, a Star Wars trailer. It's going to blow me away with its visuals, the feel, the music, the epicness.
But this is so light. And this is so just an experience you kind of follow.
Like, a part of the trailer is literally them being like, oh, like, what do you fucking, like, when he's all getting nervous about the divorce papers and they're trying to figure it out. And she's like, is this subpoena something you can go back on? And she's like, I don't want to go back on it. And it's like, marriage story. And it's like, it's just seeing. I think I honestly felt so weird because I was like, if you watch this trailer and we're like, I don't want to watch this movie, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But that's fucked up because it's just the best movie. It's so fucking, like, I don't know, we're talking about this recently about like natural and realistic, and like those like realistic filmmaking isn't realistic.
Yeah.
This film feels realistic, even though I guess it's not. But it really, like, this one really made me feel like it just, it's just something about the filming that I felt really, I don't know what it is. It was just, I think it's the way it was filmed, the kind of like, I don't want to say documentary, but it is that kind of follow with, be with. It's kind of lively, but it's as you were saying with that scene with Laura Dern, it's so wide. and she disappears into the other bathroom.
Yeah.
And we don't go into that bathroom. And then she kind of comes back out. And the same when they're fighting. In the fight scene,
and he's through a
he's
slither
just a tiny
of the
bit,
door.
and she walks out, and then both to the overreaction of like, he walks away and she's like, something like your father. She's like, don't you fucking tell me I'm like my father. You're like your mother. She's like, I'm not like, I love my mother. But don't you tell me I'm like my mother. And it was like, oh my God.
That was so...
Don't say those things. No one ever likes hearing, oh my God. No. I don't know anything about women, but don't tell them they're like their moms.
Yeah. That is absolutely true.
I love that way of the filming. And I don't even know how to describe it. It's not like something I feel like I can simply state, like, it's very like this, it's very like that. But it had this beautiful, whoever, do you know who did the cinematography? I didn't do much research. I can't even remember the director's name.
It's Noah Baumbach.
Noah Baumbach? Yeah.
Baumbach. I want to look at who the cinematographer is.
You can fix that audio on post.
Yes. I will dub in Noah Baumbach saying
so it's
his
Noah
own name.
Baumbach.
Noah
Baumbach.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Have you seen any of his other films actually? Because I looked at a bunch of them.
What's he done?
There were words. The films were titles with words. But his last film was something like the Mayor Wojcinski Chronicles, or just something where it was just, and the poster was like Adam Sandler talking with his dad, and the bottom was like some other actor just talking with his dad kind of thing. It just felt very like those kind of movies that I see, and I'm like, I'm sure that's fine. But it's just not for me. But I would love to watch all these movies because he's so good.
I haven't seen any of them.
Neither,
but looking at the posters for all of them, they look very Marriage Story-esque.
Yes, I'd imagine he makes this same kind of like slice of life, but from this angle, because this is just a couple of months or years or whatever of this family.
Yeah.
And it just happens that they're going through the divorce. And they get lawyers, Act 1, the lawyers have their thing, Act 2, there's a fight, and there's just a couple of scenes after. What I fucking loved is like, I think I realized it was being the end when he's having dinner with all the people and they're sitting there all having drinks, having laughing, that it smash cuts and he's just like, yelling about the couch, just like this woman about the couch. And he's like, I'm sorry for being so self-pitying. They're like, no. And the one guy's like, a little bit. Well, he doesn't say that, but you can kind of sense that in the room. And then I was like, oh man, I need to fuck. I'm bitching. But then he hears the song. And there's just something about a character like that, getting up and singing a song, and just that whole feeling that just felt so perfect to end it on.
And I think I got so lost in the movie, I didn't take any notes.
Well, that's a note.
And then the next note I took is right near the end. Being alive. Being alive.
I was trying to remember the song just before when I was like, I wrote a note about the main lyrics so I could remember, but I was like, You know what?
Is that improv? So that is probably the one thing that I didn't understand. I don't know. Did they provide context to that? Did I just miss it both times? Is it just an improv?
He's
singing.
That's for instance, my whole family is quite artsy and stuff. I've always been more behind the camera kind of guy. My brother loves to act.
Yeah.
I can imagine my brother in that situation, hearing a song and getting up and singing, just doing it. And obviously that bar is somewhere he can get up and sing, and that place where they're all cool with it. I think that is such exactly what an artistic person does. Like, he's all artistic, but they're very over the top dramatic people. That fucking play shit they're doing isn't the kind of play stuff I like. It's the stuff my brother likes. I'm never going to get up and sing, but he would, and he is the kind of person who's going to be like, no, this isn't working. What we need to do is for you to be standing but crawling. And then the actress being like, like this. And being like, no, I hate all of it. That bit where they all pick her up and she's all like in the red lighting and she's like, I'm in pain, or whatever it is. Yeah. And I was like, I love everything about this, except if I was in the audience, I'd want to kill myself. I hate that avant-garde, it's all about the imagery, symbolism, but you can't discuss and figure it out. No disrespect, it is what it is. It's for people, it's for a different audience, it's not for me.
It feels masturbatory. Creatively masturbatory. And that just because there is meaning behind something does not mean that you should force people to watch it.
It makes me think of what I feel like when I watch Eraserhead. Where I'm like, people are like, it means so much. Oh, I'm like, it's just fucking retarded. I just hate it.
Yeah.
I just hate it. And I totally understand exactly what it is. It's not even too confusing. I just hate it so much. That kind of stuff I hate, but I totally think the people who do that and live and breathe that world and are passionate would, at an emotional state, just get up and sing and just let it loose and just... And I love
it. It felt organic the way he put the song together, and he comes up with the little riff, and then it feeds back in, and then by the end it's all rhyming, and you watched him progressively put that song together in those moments. And even like at one stage he like is done and goes and sits back down and then goes, no, actually I got more, and gets back up, and then just it's probably a really good just representation of the entire character. It's that second guessing nature. It's putting ideas together and not getting it right and going and sitting down, and he reflected for a second, got back up and killed it. And it kind of follows the same path that he goes through in the movie. He's distorting what he should be doing with his son for what he thinks will be kind of the right thing to do. And he's trying to give his son the best Halloween he can, and all he's doing is kind of torturing his kid. You know? I just want Halloween to be over. You shut the hell up and eat some candy!
I mean, I love you, son. Oh. Yeah. It's so many.
I also did think, this is just one little aside, which doesn't have too much to do with the movie, but it does have, it does. It actually has quite a lot to do with the movie. But it's more so that the psychology behind the movie also felt kind of true. I read something recently, and I'll try and find it and annotate it in the video if I can, but that the psychology of men and women after breakups is almost completely inverted in a weird way, in that women have intense, shorter, really intense pain after a breakup and process it quite quickly and tend to move on a lot faster. And men's reaction is generally not immediate, but longer term, in that they will torture themselves. Generally, men, it takes about 12 months, and generally women have moved on by that stage. And it's not all, you know.
No.
Of
course, everyone's different, but these are studies of
the broad population. I've had relationships on both ends of that scale, and I am true of both of those things, depending on the relationship. And I've been with women who are true of both of those things. But I think overall they do kind of encapsulate that. She does move on.
She gets a boyfriend, he doesn't get a girlfriend, right? Is that what you kind of mean? Like, not that she's moved on, but that she's done
processing it. Yeah, it's not even that. But I did notice that this article I read did seem to come out a lot, and a lot of the movie it's almost like they took everything that's true about a divorce, they distilled it into the purest, you know, liquid that they could, and now they have the ether of divorce.
And we get to shot that ether,
and that's what the movie is.
Story,
exactly. They really boiled it all down to its purest form, and to the kind of universal truths of all of these situations. And no one is wrong, and no one is right, and everyone's wrong, and everyone's right.
I was about to say, it's more like everyone's wrong.
Yes.
Or everyone's kind of wrong all the time, or everyone's right all the time, but they're seeing each. Yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes you chase back the thing that you were wronged for so far that I mean, you can talk yourself into anything, and I think that's what these two people are doing, is that they were really happy together. And you do have moments like that. You have moments in time where you're just, there's nothing more important than that other person, but then you can look back on that whole time and see it through a completely different lens.
Be resentful for the entire time, regardless of the moments.
And he has a really, really good line. He says, "You were happy, you just decided you weren't now."
That's hard. That's hard to hear. That's like scary to hear, because your memory changes. It's adaptive, and you can look back on things. I recently did a whole thing recently. It was a whole endeavor for me. And at the time, it was totally different to how I look on it now.
Yeah.
You can look back from months, years, however long it is, and be like, yeah, the people I was there, what I was doing, I could have been like A-okay. No, in hindsight, not okay. And that's kind of exactly how she does. She kind of reevaluates it and kind of in a way just decides, hey, no, I wasn't. Which can feel so unfair for the other person and so brutal, but it can be so true. But then also, she can be kind of bullshit because she's so angry and hurt, and maybe in 5 years, you don't know, they could be back together in 10 years, like when he's in fucking college. You just, I don't know. What I did love though is that like halfway through the movie, she's like, you're all shaggy, you need a haircut? And that part of him, it's like when he lets her take the menu and order for him. And he's just like, okay, I guess that's what I'm ordering. And there's a bit of like, probably resentment that she's helping him, but also like...
Even the feedback that he gives her earlier.
Oh, right, at the start. That was when I first realised that this... Oh, actually, that's one of the scenes, as well as when he talks about her hair, that I think Scarlett, when you were talking about Scarlett Johansson maybe not being as good, I was like, oh, that's so mean!
No.
No. You weren't saying that, but I thought maybe that's what you were saying. And it just reminded me of this one key moment when he's being like, I want to give you notes, and she's like, oh, what the fuck? And he says the notes, and she's just like, you won't be able to go to sleep. And she like lets him have this thing. And then later on there's a moment that I think it's just the subtle acting. And it's impossible to describe, so I'll just say the scene. But it's like, he comes in and he's like, what's with the bloody hair? And she's like, oh, you saw me last time. He's like, yeah, but I didn't mention anything last time. Yeah. And she's like, what's wrong with the hair? He's like, I can't remember what he said specifically, but she's like, there's something in between what he says and then before she says absurd, there's just this thing on her face, something she does, and I just remember being like, this is too real.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know, I think this movie, I didn't really start, I probably should start with, this movie is essentially me watching people who I've seen as Kylo Ren and Black Widow in big, over-the-top movies that I've kind of loved them in, and now feel nothing towards in a lot of ways, but have this connection with them. Which is really weird for me, because they're two of my biggest things. I did that, it's like fucking two of my biggest things that I now emotionally feel a bit about, but still kind of love them. And now it's watching them both together in a movie, actually seeing them act. Like, if you asked me before this movie, is Scarlett Johansson one of the best actresses in the world? I'd be like, no, she's one of the most famous.
Yes. Yeah. But now...
I mean, I don't know. People say she's really good in JoJo too, so maybe she has some of the best performances of all of last year. Who knows?
Have you seen Under the Skin?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to see that film for about 50 years, but like every time I go to think about watching
it's a Razorhead. It's torturous. It's like that.
I think though, because I've seen little bits of it, and every time my brother says something about a film, he knows if I'm going to like something.
I think you will.
He knows that I'd like... he's told me to watch Under the Skin. I just think I know I would like that film because it's got the weird, creepy, gross, perverse kind of like alien monster creeps, that creature aspect to the film. And also I'm very aware of that weird, like, it's kind of just filming a real actress, but somewhere where they don't know she's a real actress, so it's like actually just a real movie. But
and you don't know where the lines are. You don't know where that ends and begins, and you don't know what's cinema and what's... this elaborate construction.
I should have watched that movie tonight. I've been so excited to watch that movie. It's kind of one of those movies that I literally just keep pushing. It's like Uncut Gems. I'm so excited to watch it. Yeah. Every time I go to click it, I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't... You know, you need to save movies.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I actually did that with Marriage Story. Like, I put it off, and it was it was this thing that, us wanting to talk about it, wanting to do something like this. Absolutely. Oh, and I've watched about half an hour of Uncut Gems, and I feel exactly the same way. In that, I just want to be in the right space.
Right, yeah.
And
would you start it again?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I loved what I saw. Yeah. I saw half an hour, and it actually felt like, in a lot of ways, the polar opposite of Marriage Story. It's like...
Fun?
Well, just very close and very shaky and very, like, grimy and very, like, city-like and... Just everything felt... Marriage Story's so clean.
I feel slimy, like I want to go have a shower. You're just saying those words. I've seen a few of the images, and Adam Sandler's got that kind of like... Ugh. Yeah. Where you're kind of like... I love it when you see an actor and you're like, aren't they sexy? Why does he not look sexy now? Not that Adam Sandler's the sexiest man in the world, but it's like, he's not a bad... I don't know, he's got like that look, just that goofy, like, fun-loving goofball. Yeah. I've just seen little images. I could be totally wrong, but it's like...
No, you're not.
He seems grimy and gross. The hairs are all kind of just... In those places that just feel a bit like... Ooh. But it's also kind of amazing because, oh my god, just the idea of seeing Adam Sandler act good is so exciting. I'm just nervous to watch it. I hate him so much now. As an actor, I'm sure he's the greatest person. But but to the movie we're talking about, Marriage Story. I feel like Kyran's face doesn't have freckles, and then in the fight, when it cuts to the close-ups, he's got like 70 freckles. Ooh. Rewatch that scene, man. It's really weird because... When you get a close-up, you're getting different things.
Yep.
And it felt like they maybe didn't put makeup on or something. Or they put freckle makeup. It was a really weird thing because I totally noticed it the second time when it really builds up the fight. And he's like, Rah! And she's like, Rah! And it really cuts in deep.
Yep.
Really close. His face was like, there's just way more going on. And I just don't really understand what that is. But I guess it's the same as just, you cut a shot of a wide shot of feet or legs and you see hair, and then you cut into close up and I've got all these little red dots everywhere. I got my little cut, it's...
Yeah.
I don't know, it was just such a weird thing where I was like...
The details, like, right there in front of your face. And
yeah.
It'd be interesting. I mean, it would make
I got
sense
the
if they
baby face thing proper from that. Like, when you were saying that baby face stuff, I was like, proper in this. In other stuff, I don't know if I'd agree, but in this movie, I felt like he was a 7-foot big baby face guy. And
the only other time I really think that I really had that thought is the reveal in Force Awakens of his face. Because I remember that being just so jarring.
So jarring!
Yeah? And it's jarring because he's just like he's
just some dude! He's like a 20-year-old boy!
It's like, even Ray says it, a creature in a mask, which is what we're all thinking at this point, and then it's just this little boy.
Yeah, he's just I remember...
Not a little boy.
Before that movie came out, I think post that movie was when I got online and was on the discourse of things. When that movie came out, I didn't know there was going to be a fucking Death Star, and I didn't know who Kylo Ren was. So when he took his mask off, that was the first time I was like, the fuck is this? Just some fucking kid? He just... 20-year-old pastily... I hated the rest of that movie in a way. From him, I was always like, oh, put the mask back on. And now, every time I wear a mask, I'm like, why hire sexy, perfect Adam Driver? And I don't get to see his face. It's such a weird thing. One of the things I absolutely loved as well was like the little things of like, at the end of the movie, she's just like, yeah, you go. Like, it's not my night, but he's a bit tired. We're going to go for dinner. And he's just like, oh, it's your night. She's like, oh, whatever. And he's like, okay. Very small, simple, but that is like the whole movie.
That's the art.
It's a film of just all those little things.
Yeah.
And like, because I remember the first time I was like finished, I was like, that was like every second I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Like I was like angry at how good it was. I was just like, oh my god, like what the fuck. But at the end, I was like, someone asked me what the story was. Like, what happened? Like what were the big moments? But then I was like, that's it. It's all these little moments. Like, at one point, it feels like time has passed, and Laura Dern's like, so this has happened, the divorce, you're going to get this, and Ray Liotta's kind of given up, and all this, and we're just going to be sorted. And I was like, oh shit, the fight. It was just that. It's just moments.
I think I heard the director surmise it perfectly.
Yeah. Amazing.
All he said was, this is a love story about a divorce. And I think that's probably
it is, yeah, exactly. Sure. The divorce is over at the end. There is...
But it's still a love story.
No, exactly. And And I love that it, I don't, it's, because it's kind of like, that it's the classic second act structure where they have the big fight, and instead of teaming up to fight the bad guy, teaming up and being in love at the end, it's like, the end is him accepting that maybe the best thing will be just sometimes he can come over when it's not my night. And they've come to a point where she'll tie his shoe. And that is so small. And so it's almost insignificant, but it's so small and insignificant that it's almost the most significant. Like, it says so much that he's able to go there with the other boyfriend, have that civil, I'll wait for that evil, and just all that, and just accepting it, and then he just walks off to the car, and then we just get that long, when films just kind of end, and you're like, oh, black, and it ends. But then sometimes you do want it to crawl over and just sit there with the credits.
Yeah.
And the credits are almost there as like a
suggest something else to you.
Pardon me?
I said, and then Netflix suggests something else to you.
No.
And you're like, fuck off, stupid trailer for a terrible documentary I don't want to watch. Let me sit in this movie.
You know what is totally random, but I'm going to have to be right now. Just makes me so fucking angry. I was watching BoJack's final season recently, and BoJack's final episode music, like the closing episode music, is almost my favorite part of the show. Like, it encapsulates everything about his past that's seeping into him. It's like back in the 90s, I don't come with all the things. Like, fucking look that shit up. But it's everything about his backstory, his history, but it's also a catchy, fun kind of thing. And it works when the episodes end on the most horrific things where you're just sobbing to yourself alone in your room, and then it hits you with that back in the night, and you're kind of like, oh my god. And then 5 seconds later, next episode, playing, already. The fucking final season won't say anything about it, but it's so fucking great. So well, but every fucking episode ended. I almost downloaded the show. I have the show, paid for on Netflix, and I was so fucking close to downloading it illegally, just so I could have those episodes play at the end. And because that 5 second thing, that didn't know how to fix it, You know what the most infuriating thing is, though? I was watching fucking Avatar: The Last Airbender with a mate last night, and every fucking episode would end, and then it would just play the credits. And I'm like, where's my next thing? We just want to binge. Next, we're skipping the credits, we're skipping everything. And it just wouldn't do it. And it made me so angry that there's not just this thing where you can be like, BoJack Horseman, always end credits. If I'm watching a movie, I don't want you to fucking 15 seconds after I finish the movie, suggest some other movie, just content. I'm like, no, sometimes I want to fucking breathe. I want to sit there, take a breath.
For the most part,
Netflix feels like they're trying to
get on with it. Come on, get into the next thing. We don't want you clicking away, guys. Watch it.
It makes me so angry.
It's the Rick and Morty. It doesn't do it.
Does it not?
Because there's after credit scenes.
Yes.
So anything with an after credit scene, it'll play through the credits.
I actually love that Netflix knows that. Like, there's an episode of The Simpsons where there was like a bit where they were just kind of, we're just talking over the credits, but just for a little bit, and it played, and then it did the 5 seconds later, but it was like 10 seconds later or 20 seconds later. So it was the system's aware, but fuck for BoJack, it's the only thing that made me like physically angry. Like that season was lesser because I'd sit there, the episode would end, and then I'd run off the couch to like click the thing so I could listen, but then I'd kind of emotionally switch that. I don't know. It actually made me fucking angry. So much so that I almost don't want to talk about the movie anymore. I just want to yell about how much... I was like this close to writing a letter, but then I was like, I don't even know how that would happen. Do I?
So I did have one marriage story related question for you to tie things up. There's one scene, or one little bit of one scene that I didn't quite understand what they were going for. Mm-hmm. When, after she goes to the party, Scarlett Johansson's character goes to the Halloween party and meets Flirty Grip.
Oh my god.
I love Flirty Grip.
Flirty Grip.
It's just,
why is it always a Flirty Grip?
The part that I didn't know what they were going for, when they get in the car and they're going to have sex, and she says, just finger me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, is that her trying to reclaim control of the situation? Is it character development or character change? Is it her not ready to move on yet? I didn't really know what they were going for.
So I guess, for me, that scene is like kind of as simple as her just being like, fuck Adam Driver, I'm gonna cheat. And she gets into the situation and then she's like, maybe not like...
I'll go halfway?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, I think maybe she's like, kissing's not enough. Like, I need to like kind of do something that is, taking the power back. And then maybe...
I think you can read it both ways, which is why I was confused. You can read it as it's her wanting to move on and do something with someone else, or it's her... Did she go to the car with the intent to have sex, or did she
and then
just
bail out on it, kind of?
Yeah, and go halfway, or did she go to the car and was just making out with a guy and then went, I'm going to take control of the situation. You're just going to do this thing.
Yeah. I choose what happened. Yeah.
I don't know which way to read it. And I think one way... I mean, it's earlier in the film, so if her character's still kind of building towards that endpoint, it does make sense that she's not there yet, you know?
Yeah.
But I just didn't really know. And there's not enough there.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, because I definitely see that as her being like... Because, I don't know, there's something that can be like... When you kind of feel like, I don't really, like, she's like, I don't want to cheat or anything like that. But then when someone likes you, it's quite like flattering and it makes you feel nice and loved. And it's just a very simple human emotion. And to have that, so maybe it's just also just trying to get that, like feeling like he's not giving that. But then also just being like, I'm not fully ready. Because it really, for me, feels like she wants to, but is just not ready to step over, which I think, for sex, for anything, it's like when you kind of know you're there, but to actually put that step over that line, sometimes you need to put a toe in to test the waters. You know, like sometimes you just need to do it. But
I like
it's interesting. Yeah, almost every scene in this you could read it different ways, like the way they all just interact with everyone. It's very God, that's just an interesting film. I don't think I even really thought about that scene. But to do with Sexy Grip Man, before we finish, one of the things on the rewatch just boggled my mind with how excited I was by it all. It was just, I love seeing movie things in movies, but often it's a bit like, we're Hollywood, we're all sexy Hollywood, it's so good. But this one, I just thought was so fucking great, where she's just like holding the baby. And she's so excited to get into this pilot. And you see them putting weird CGI things on her face. And I'm like, I don't know what they're doing with her face. But she clearly is being crafted into some other thing. And she's got a big CGI baby thing. And she's holding the head. And all the men are like, could you? Yeah, of course, hold the baby like that. She's like, what? The baby can't be supported. And they're like, oh, yeah, of course support the baby's head. From like the shoulders, the lower back. And they're all just being like, not really caring. And the one woman's just kind of like, that's going to look real weird. Yeah. And then to find out she's only really like on the set because like her lawyer got her in there. And there's just those little things where it didn't feel like it was like, fucking deal with this whole thing. All this, it was just there. It was dealing with it. And it was there to inform Scarlett Johansson's character. And the way she is like, when she's on the theatre stage and you see her, she's like, I'm on the back of the man and I'm powerful. And you want me to crawl and stand? I'm there. I'm doing it. The red lighting is and it's just ooh. And then she's on this set and she's like holding this thing and people are putting things on her and she's like, can I speak? Can I speak? And when she does get her voice out, they're suddenly all following her like, oh, hey! And they're there, but she has to like, all of that was very fascinating. And just, I love it so much when I just see things in a movie where I'm like, oh my God, that's just how it would be. Like, because you see so many things where people CGI, especially because it's Scarlett Johansson as well. She's always hanging out with the big green man that would be the Hulk in the end and all this stuff. It's just so fun to see her kind of switch that and play against that, and then having all the directors and producers and all these just people just being there, all just bickering and chatting, and the way they all moved outside and they put on the sunglasses because LA is hot,
and they're all just tightly following her in this like barnacle-like structure.
It's like they've clung to her and they're stuck and they're like just...
And I just can't stand people like that. I think there's a line from one of the characters. They just say something completely inoffensive that everyone would agree with and then follow it up by saying, oh, that's just me. I just tell it like it is. You know what I mean? Like that shit is just... We've all encountered people like that. It's probably... I think it's the same girl that recommends The Lawyer now that I think of it. But just that Hollywood fakeness, that like saying something that is just so inoffensive to everyone that sounds like you're giving your opinion, but basically everyone was in agreement. No one is talking against this point, and you're just so vapid and addicted to making stars around you like you. But I don't know, there's just such a big disconnect there. It just captures that I think that idea.
They barely do anything with that, but it's right at the start really gets you into that, like that whole one, like the switch up from her New York acting to the LA lifestyle.
It's kind of the polar opposite in the sense that the dark Hollywood theater of it all, and she's taking kind of complete direction from someone, and then flashing over to this, and it's everyone is around her, everyone's swooning over her. I suppose I like that, what would you call it, juxtaposition? Yeah. If you were to use the wanky word.
You got to chuck it into at least every single review, just once. I've actually fully blanked on it, but there's one phrase that I literally can't like take seriously anymore because of essentially
the overuse.
It's Thrones and Star Wars, and I can't remember what it is, but you must know. Subverting expectations. Yeah. That has become just a whole thing, and I'm like, subverting expectations is such a classic thing.
You're just saying
we have basic film language, and then if anything changes from that, that's subverting your expectation. And it's just because it's become such a thing of what you expect.
I think
let's not get into that. We're gonna start talking about Game of Thrones, and
we saw the full circular roundabout way that subverting expectations went from just doing the Hollywood thing, and then doing the opposite of the Hollywood thing, and then doing the opposite of that brought us back to the original thing. And then we get left with The Last Jedi, where everything is subversion, but it's also everything we've already seen. And it's this weird middle ground of nothing and everything, and it's why the whole thing doesn't quite work. And it's why this movie is so great, because this movie is not trying to stay one step ahead of you. This movie's not trying to hold your attention with anything dangling it in front of you and luring you towards down some path that's not going to go anywhere, that's just going to just veer off.
There's no weird red herrings or things. It just...
The writing's on the wall from the very
it's
beginning.
So
We see, I mean, the entire movie is surmised at the opening and is explored through its entirety, and then we watch these relationships and characters clash and interact, and what we're left with, like I keep going back to, is just this like genuine, true feeling of what this situation is like for people, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
So, unless, I mean, we can circle back around and you can fix the shit, but as a whole thing, you would 100% bloody recommend?
I would recommend it. I would recommend it to just such a wide range of people too.
I mean, honestly can't think of... I mean, actually I have a few mates that would hate it. But I would genuinely recommend it to everybody. Like, it's... Like, I have so little to do with knowledge of, like, divorce and just... This isn't really my type of movie. I told my brother, who we have very similar tastes, like, he was, like, kind of surprised I liked it. And then was like, well, you like just a good movie.
Yeah.
And then you have your, things with big krakens and monsters and things.
Yeah.
And monsters and eating faces and all that weird horror stuff that you love and creatures and all that. But you also just love a good movie. And I would say, yeah. I often say things make it too extreme, but I would say this is a masterpiece. Like, I truly think this is so good. I really, like, honestly, if I'm really delving deep, I can't think of a criticism, like a proper criticism that I genuinely think they should have changed. I can't think of anything. Like, part of me was kind of like, is the kid actor bad? But I think just kid actors, but I think, no, that last scene where the kid actor is, well, the kid, I can't remember the name of the actor there, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The kid, the way he's reading that note, the way
and
Kylo comes in, and it just, yeah, and I really got this, like, he's this kid throughout the movie. And then we've kind of taken a jump a bit into the future. We don't really know how long they could have served. I got the sense it was at least a couple of months to a year, like a bit later.
Yeah, no, it would be a year because it was the following Halloween.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it felt like about that. And I think the kid has realised, probably because of the new boyfriend, and he would have really gotten used to that separation at that point.
I didn't even think of that. But
That he is really, like, it's different because there's at one point he's like, I don't know, he asks the dad something, and it was just so like, he doesn't really know what's going on at all. He's a bit like, oh, like, why are you traveling, this and that? And like, that's like, I got work, That's the most frustrating thing as an adult is hearing kids say something, and you're like, he's got a job! He lives in a society! He has to work to feed you! Every time... Yeah. Because as a kid, that never occurs to you. Jobs don't feel... But it's like, he needs a fucking job, man. You want to eat.
I think this movie...
Let him work.
This movie appeals to people who have been in relationships. I think it would be equally appealing to someone who's never been in a relationship, because you could learn a lot of lessons from this thing that you don't have to learn the hard way, because it's so real.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slice of life. And if you're not a part of that slice of life, like, you could hate or not be a part of any of these aspects of the whole film, but yeah, it's... God damn, it's so good. Even just down to, like, Scarlett Johansson's hair. She looks great with that short hair. I just love it. Yeah, just everything. The side actor who's in the acting troupe. It's the Birdman from Aladdin? Yeah?
I think so.
I don't know what his name is, but he has, like, a nasally right. I don't
nasally.
I don't do accents. I don't even know why I half attempted that. Yeah. But something about when he starts speaking, just very visceral reaction to it. And I think it's just funny when you have a voice that's an animated voice. This is totally relevant to me. He's just in the movie. He's got a voice, and I think it's the parrot from Aladdin. Oh my god, after this, I'm going to Google it and be so angry. Because he's probably...
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah.
But he's always in animated things, and he's got a larger-than-life voice. But for me, it's a larger-than-life voice where I'm kind of like, that voice exists in real life? Mabel from Gravity Falls is the same. She's from Flight of the... He's from Toy Story as well. The girl that's in Flight of the Conchords has the same thing. In Flight of the Conchords, she's the fan, and she has a really weird nasally voice.
And BoJack.
But she...
Sarah
Oh,
Lynn.
yeah, she's Sarah Lynn.
Yeah.
Oh, she's Sarah Lynn and BoJack. But for me, she's the second main character, Mabel, a little girl in Gravity Falls.
Right.
And that voice for the child, 6-year-old or 10-year-old or whatever it is. Oh my god, it's so perfect. It's like, that's her voice. She is Mabel from Gravity Falls. So when I see her as an actress, I'm like,
no.
Yeah, I'm just like, even Sarah Lynn, I think if BoJack wasn't so good and I wasn't just if it wasn't so good, I'd be like, my friend who loves Bojack is like, it's so weird, it's Mabel. Why is Mabel taking drugs and doing it? It just doesn't work for him. Because it works when she's in the kid thing, because that's like her voice. Yeah, his whole voice, and just, it's so weird when you see an actor and you're just like so used to them, hearing them in that animated voice, and then it's just like, that's just what they look like, and you're like, it's so weird he looks like it. But yeah, he has one of my favorite lines of the movie. There's just such a little Hollywood thing. He's just like, oh, the 7-time Axel nominator was sucking on my cock, and he cuts off before cock. But it's just so like, oh, look at these actors who are in that world but not really in it, being like, I got blown by like Brad Pitt or whatever, and it's like, who cares?
Who cares? There's another scene where he walks into the stairwell and goes, I want to talk to you about the love scene. And he's like, what love scene? He's like, well, there isn't one yet.
I want to hug. He's like, and he's like, don't hug her. We don't need that. Brilliant. Perfect. That guy is so good. I'm not saying that guy's a bad actor or anything, or don't like seeing him. It's just that it's so weird when you just realize that voice for you is animated. And then you're like, he's a man. He's a man with a face and that's him. But yeah, I recommend. Real good. I give no ratings, but do you like giving a rating or?
I don't know. I guess if I had to rate it out of 10, it would be quite a tough one, because I think, like you said, I can't really point out a flaw, but I don't like giving movies a 10, because I feel like when you give a movie a 10, you're saying this is all that can be done. Like,
but sometimes,
or do you
what
reevaluate?
It's all I want it to be.
It depends if your score is shifting. Is it 10 the best movie you've ever seen, or is it 10 just
good enough,
a perfect movie
in
what it is?
Yeah. It's
if we're rating it as my favorite movie of all time, it's an 8 or 9. If we're rating it as just what it is, it's a 10.
Yeah, for me it is a masterpiece. It's perfect, real good.
Yeah,
I would give it a recommend to watch. And I don't think I was going to give it some weird, like, stupid rating. I was like, I'll give it 1 divorce out of 1. But no, I can't be bothered thinking of anything clever or funny. It's just real good. I think that, honestly, I can't wait to stand and watch it again.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see this guy's other movies.
Oh, I'm so fucking keen. Yeah. Whatever his name was, Noah
Baumbach.
Cut.